Johnny Cash was standing backstage at the Grand Ole Opry, talking to his guitarist about the set list for that night's performance, when Loretta Lynn walked up to him. The hallway was crowded with musicians, crew members, and Opry staff moving in and out of dressing rooms. It was the usual pre-show chaos, energy high, everyone focused on their own preparations. Loretta didn't wait for a break in the conversation. She just walked right up to Cash and said, "John, I need to talk to you." Cash looked up. He'd known Loretta for years. They were friends, colleagues. They respected each other's work. But the expression on her face told him this wasn't a friendly chat. "Sure, Loretta," Cash said. "What's on your mind?" Loretta glanced at the guitarist, then back at Cash. "Alone." The guitarist took the hint and walked away. A few other people in the hallway noticed the tension and started moving farther down the corridor, giving them space but still within earshot. Loretta looked directly at Cash. Her eyes were hard, determined. "You're a coward, John," she said. The hallway didn't go completely silent, but the people nearby stopped what they were doing. Someone dropped something. The sound echoed. Cash's expression didn't change. He just looked at Loretta, waiting. "You fight for prisoners," Loretta continued, her voice steady and clear. "You go into those jails and you sing for men who've committed crimes. You stand up for them. You make them feel human. But you won't fight for us." Cash opened his mouth like he was going to respond, but nothing came out. He closed it again. "Last week," Loretta said, "Dolly Parton was recording at RCA Studio B. She wrote a song, a great song, one of the best things she's ever written. And the producer told her it wasn't commercial enough. Know what his real problem was? It made him uncomfortable. It was too honest, too female. So he shelved it." Cash's jaw tightened. "You heard about it," Loretta said. "Everyone heard about it. The whole industry was talking about it. And you know what you did? Nothing. You said nothing. You did nothing." "Loretta," Cash started. "I'm not finished," Loretta interrupted. "That same week, Barbara Mandrell got passed over for a headlining spot at a festival. You know why? Because the promoter said women don't draw crowds like men do. Didn't matter that Barbara sells out every show she does. Didn't matter that she's more talented than half the men on that lineup. She's a woman, so she got the afternoon slot, while men with half her talent got the evening." Cash was silent. "You heard about that too," Loretta said, "and again, you said nothing." Someone coughed in the hallway. The normal backstage noise had faded to almost nothing. Everyone was listening now, even if they were pretending not to. "Last month," Loretta continued, "a radio programmer in Memphis told Tammy Wynette that he'd play her songs more often if she'd have dinner with him, alone, at his place. You know what that is, John? That's not a dinner invitation. That's extortion." Cash's face had gone pale. "Tammy told people," Loretta said. "She told her manager. She told her label. She told other artists. The word got around. And you know what happened? Nothing. That programmer still has his job. He's still making decisions about whose music gets played and whose doesn't. And Tammy? She just has to live with knowing that if she wants her music on that station, she has to smile and pretend that didn't happen." "Did she tell me?" Cash asked quietly. "Did Tammy tell me directly?" "She shouldn't have to," Loretta shot back. "You're Johnny Cash. You hear things. You know things. And you made a choice to stay quiet." Cassius looked down at his boots, then back up at Loretta. "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to tell me why," Loretta said. "Why you'll stand up for criminals, but not for us. Why you'll walk into a prison and sing about justice and redemption, but you won't walk into a radio station and ask why women get treated like second-class citizens in their own industry." Cash was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I don't know how to fight that battle." "But you know how to fight for prisoners?" "That's different." "How?" Loretta's voice rose slightly. "How is it different?"
Cash struggled to find words. I understand that. I've been close to that edge. I know what it's like to feel like an outcast. But this, the way women are treated in this industry, I don't know the right way to help. I don't know what to do without making it worse. Stared at him. So you do nothing? I don't want to speak for women. I don't want to be the man who swoops in and tries to fix everything. That's not my place. I'm not asking you to fix everything, Loretta said, her voice sharp. I'm asking you to say something. I'm asking you to use your voice. When you hear about Dolly's song getting shelved, you call that producer and ask why. When you hear about Barbara getting passed over, you tell that promoter it's wrong. When you hear about Tammy being harassed, you make it clear that's not acceptable. You don't have to solve everything. You just have to not be silent. Cash's hands were clenched at his sides. You're right, he said quietly. I know I'm right, Loretta said. And you know what the worst part is? You know you can't pick and choose who deserves your courage, John. Either you stand for justice or you don't. You can't say you care about the forgotten and the oppressed and then forget about half of them because helping them makes you uncomfortable.
The hallway was completely silent now. No one was even pretending not to listen anymore. Cash looked at Loretta for a long moment. Then he said, "What do you need me to do?" Loretta hadn't expected that response. She'd expected defensiveness, arguments, excuses. But Cash was asking what she needed, and that changed everything. Next time you hear about something like this, Loretta said, don't stay quiet. That's all. Just don't be silent. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to fix everything. Just acknowledge it's wrong. Use your platform. Say something. Cash nodded slowly. Okay. Okay? Yes. You're right. I've been a coward, and I'm done being a coward. Loretta studied his face. She was trying to determine if he meant it, or if he was just saying what she wanted to hear. I mean it, Cash said, reading her expression. I should have done this a long time ago, but I'm going to do it now. They stood there for a moment, these two giants of country music, in a crowded hallway backstage at the Grand Ole Opry, having changed something fundamental between them. Thank you, Loretta said finally. No, thank you for calling me out, for not letting me hide behind my image, for making me see what I've been refusing to see. Loretta nodded once. Then she turned and walked back to her dressing room, leaving Cash standing in that hallway with everyone watching. Cash stood there for another moment. Then he walked over to a phone on the wall and made a call. People nearby heard him ask for RCA Studio B, heard him ask to speak to the producer who'd worked with Dolly Parton. The conversation was brief, but clear. Cash asked about the song, asked why it had been shelved, and when the producer started making excuses, Cash interrupted. I'd like to hear it. And if it's as good as I've been told, I think you should reconsider your decision. He hung up, made another call, this one to a festival promoter. The conversation was similar, direct, no wasted words. By the time Cash went on stage that night, word had already spread through the Opry. Johnny Cash had called out two industry figures in less than an hour, and he'd done it because Loretta Lynn had told him he was a coward. The change wasn't immediate. Cash didn't suddenly become a crusader for women's rights in country music, but something had shifted. He started paying attention, started asking questions, started using his influence to push back against discrimination he'd previously ignored. When a radio station wouldn't play a female artist, Cash called and asked why. When a venue paid women less than men for the same work, Cash made it known he thought that was wrong. When he heard about harassment or discrimination, he didn't stay quiet. He wasn't perfect. He made mistakes. Sometimes he said the wrong thing or approached situations poorly. But he tried, and that mattered. Loretta Lynn and Johnny Cash remained friends, close friends, but their relationship had changed that night. Cash had more respect for Loretta than ever before, not just for her talent, but for her courage to confront him, to tell him a hard truth that no one else would say. Years later, in the 1990s, Johnny Cash was asked in an interview about the most important lessons he'd learned in his career. "Loretta Lynn taught me something crucial," Cash said. "She taught me that courage isn't just about standing up for people you relate to. It's about standing up for everyone, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you don't have all the answers." The interviewer asked him to elaborate. "I spent years performing for prisoners," Cash said, "and I was proud of that work. I still am. But Loretta made me realize I'd been selective about my courage. I was willing to fight for one group of marginalized people, but not another, and she called me a coward for it, and she was right." "What changed?" "I did," Cash said simply. "I started paying attention, started speaking up. Not perfectly, not always effectively, but I stopped being silent, because Loretta taught me that silence is a choice. And when you're silent in the face of injustice, you're choosing a side, and it's the wrong side." "Did she ever know how much that conversation affected you?" Cash smiled. "Oh, she knew. I made sure she knew. And every time I saw her after that, I thanked her, because that's what real friends do. They tell you the truth even when it's hard to hear, especially when it's hard to hear." Loretta Lynn told a different version of the story when asked about it years later. "I was angry," she admitted. "I was tired of watching women in this industry get treated like we didn't matter, and I knew John had the power to help. So I confronted him, and I called him a coward, which was harsh, but it was true." "Did you think he'd change?" Loretta paused. "Honestly, I didn't know. A lot of men, when you confront them like that, they get defensive, they make excuses, they tell you why it's not their responsibility. But John didn't do that. He listened, and then he asked what I needed him to do, and that's when I knew he meant it." "Did things change in the industry?" "Some things, not everything, not nearly enough. But John started speaking up, and when Johnny Cash speaks up, people listen. So yes, it helped. Did it solve everything? No. But it was something, and something is better than nothing." The confrontation backstage at the Grand Ole Opry became one of those legendary moments in country music history, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. Two people having an honest conversation about justice and courage and what it means to stand up for what's right. Johnny Cash had built his career on being the voice for the voiceless, but that night, Loretta Lynn reminded him that he'd been selective about which voices he was willing to amplify. And to his credit, Cash listened. He changed. He grew. Because that's what real courage looks like. Not never making mistakes, but being willing to be told when you've made one, and then doing the work to be better. Loretta Lynn called Johnny Cash a coward, and instead of defending himself, Cash asked what he could do to stop being one. That question, that moment of humility and willingness to change, transformed their friendship and changed how Cash approached his platform for the rest of his career. Some people are born brave. Others learn bravery through confrontation, through having someone they respect tell them a hard truth and choosing to listen rather than defend. Johnny Cash learned that kind of bravery from Loretta Lynn. In a crowded hallway at the Grand Ole Opry, she told him he was a coward, and he proved her wrong by admitting she was right. That's what happened the day Loretta Lynn changed Johnny Cash forever. Not by tearing him down, but by refusing to let him be less than he could be. By demanding he extend his courage to everyone who needed it, not just the people he found comfortable to defend, and by believing that he was capable of being better. That belief, that demand for more, that refusal to let him hide behind his image as a champion of the oppressed while ignoring another form of oppression, it changed everything. Not overnight, not perfectly, but genuinely. And that's all Loretta had been asking for,
Not perfection, just genuine effort, just the willingness to extend his courage beyond his comfort zone. Johnny Cash gave her that, and in doing so, he became a better man, a better artist, a better advocate. All because Loretta Lynn had the courage to tell him he was being a coward, and he proved her wrong by admitting she was right.